Alright.
Welcome back to another premium podcast. I am Mr. Marius Bendorf interviewing,
Daniel Gregson.
and we'll be talking about the digital environment. This is episode 2, Internet of Things and Internet Infrastructure. I'm going to start out with a how are you doing? We're going to get into some questions and then we're going to wrap this podcast up. So, how are you doing, Mr. Daniel?
I am doing just dandy. Just dandy.
Just dandy. I like that. I'm doing pretty good myself. Just got done with a beautiful day out here. The sun was really poking out today.
Oh yeah,
And,
was here too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been really good lately.
I'm glad y'all are starting to transition over to the sun time, aren't you?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's getting up there. Sunny days. It's feeling like 90 degrees already.
What?
Yeah.
It must be nice too, because I know it's that Pacific Northwest weather, or the wind specifically, the air.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Alrighty. Let's hop straight into it.
Let's do it. So, after reading the chapters 1 through 5 and summing it up on chapter 10 of the book we were assigned, I grew up a few questions. And the first one is, in what ways do you believe IoT or Internet of Things devices affect how people interact with each other? And do you think they bring people closer together, or do they create distance?
So what I really think about, like, interconnected things like that is, like, for example, like remote apps for your, like, say, vacuum, like if you have that thing like a Roomba. Some of those things are really nice, and I think sometimes it can really affect maybe how connected we are with, like, reality almost, because how, like, engrossed you are in your phone can really, like, affect your life, and whether people realize it or not. But most of the time it's good, and I think people use it for better than for worse. But it can be a problem just with anything.
Well, following that, a piece that I took out of chapter 1 concerning client-server relationships is, in the mid-1980s, businesses began to see the need to connect their computers as a way to collaborate and share resources. I want to touch on that part exclusively because it reminds me of LAN connections, and this is actually what it's referring to. Known as client server, this networking architecture allowed users to log into the local area network from their PC, the client, by connecting to the central computer called a server. Now, this reminds me of those Halo sessions back in the day, the Call of Duty sessions that you could play with your friends when they came over. You would bring multiple devices and monitors, whatever. And
yeah, it's called a LAN party.
Yeah, the LAN party. Now, relating that to question number 1, I would imagine your response to that being that it brings people closer together. Would you like to speak on that?
Yeah, I think, as demonstrated through what we were talking about, LAN parties, it was like a huge factor for, me growing up and a lot of people growing up. People who played video games, I should say, which was quite a few. It definitely was not a minority by any means. But yeah, that was such an enjoyable, like, memory in my head, for sure.
I like that. My brothers and I, we didn't, we all had to share one console, so I didn't get to indulge on the LAN parties as much, but I
Yeah,
do have, some recollection of how all that went and the nostalgia that comes with it as well. And
yeah.
moving forward, can you share an example of how you use IoT devices in your daily life and what benefits do they provide you?
Yeah, so one of them I actually just started using. I got an Apple HomePod. Uh,
Interesting.
it isn't exactly the most like necessary, like I can't live without this thing, but it's very nice. I mean, I can play music remotely from my phone and I don't have to like set up a Bluetooth connection. Um,
Mm.
I can set it up and it'll connect through the internet to my home. And I could just start playing music, and by the time I get home, it's already in the middle of one of my favorite songs. So, get me in the groove faster to do whatever I need to do.
Apple HomePod, huh? Do they have speakers around the house as well, or is it just that
No, no,
one?
no. It's like a central unit almost, like
Okay,
almost like
okay.
a Amazon Echo, but except
I
Echoes
like it.
can connect to more.
I like that. I've always thought about those movies and TV shows where the protagonist or the main character comes home and they already have like their smooth jazz playing.
Yeah.
When I was coming out of tech school, I bought a speaker specifically for that so I could come home and the music would be playing. I'd have the jazz set in the mood all throughout the day. So when I come home, I can, relax and, decompress.
Yeah.
Now, another question I have for you is somewhat like the Apple HomePod. How did you think those IoT devices have changed your daily routines or habits? And do you have any examples?
Uh, you know, it hasn't exactly for me personally changed who I am. But I mean, there's something I'm just maybe not realizing. Uh, maybe I'm not realizing how it affects me. Uh, but personally, it doesn't affect who I am. It's more just like supplemental, and I enjoy the benefits of it. I'm not reliant on it.
Yeah, it's like one of those passive things, maybe.
Yeah, passive.
Gotcha. Tracking. Okay. So, how do you see IoT or Internet of Things impacting the future of work and productivity in various industries? Do you see any benefits or challenges at all?
Uh, I do see a lot of benefits, but I also see some challenges. The
Mhm.
obvious benefits are efficiency, and
Mhm.
you can be more connected
Yeah.
with others. But some of the negatives can be maybe on the like other side of the coin. Maybe we're too connected. Maybe
Huh.
we're getting to the point where we're not exactly grounded with reality or with you know the real life, which I mean it could be overgeneralization, but uh and I'm not making judgments on anybody, but it's a worry because it could
Yeah.
happen, and that's not good. That's definitely not good.
I see where you're coming from, and the way I look at it is, humans need that natural grounding, going outside
Yeah,
and
for sure.
going on walks and always having that stuff in your face or, cluttering your mind or whatnot.
Hmm.
It starts becoming like iRobot. And I've brought this up
Yeah,
so many
yeah.
times, but it's one of my favorite movies. So
Yeah, that's actually one of my favorite movies too. I think, yeah, I've written reports in like high school on that movie because I
mhm.
don't remember what we were like trying to point out, but there was so many things about it that was just like dystopian things. Like, do you think the
Yeah.
world's gonna come to this? And I don't really think so. But if we start losing touch with reality, I mean, it could be. You never know.
Well, relating to that neutral or a positive context, I would say. in chapter 5, the summary of chapter 5 actually, the development of the internet and world wide web combined with wireless access has made information available at our fingertips. The Web 2.0 revolution has made everyone potential authors of web content. Now you can see the two go hand in hand, or the two like Scar and the Lion King's father.
Mufasa.
Now, ending that summary from the piece that I grabbed was, as network technology has matured, the use of internet technologies has become a standard for every type of organization. Now, I want to hit back on that. Either the two go hand in hand, or one is letting go of the other and it goes more towards a negative. Now, the fingertips, the having information available at our fingertips, I feel like that's always a good thing. Whether you're, out in public and you need to prove somebody wrong so that you can boost your ego, or on the other hand, anybody can be an author. For example, Wikipedia, they can post something, or simply making a website and boosting it to the top of search results, saying that, oh, this is factual, when in reality it could be false and cause alarm and panic to everybody.
Mhm.
That's how I see it. And I think, relating to too much of it could be negative. I think that's also something to add in.
Yeah, when you say like kind of open access to the internet, and immediately what I thought of was like Google, and I don't remember if this is 100% true, but I think there was kind of a panic. So what I'm thinking about is like teachers like saying don't use Google or don't use the internet for things when it first started like becoming super popular. And I think that was just out of fear because of like misinformation and stuff like that.
Right. Something to think about tonight for me, most definitely. Now, according to statistics, some forecasts suggest that the number of active IoT devices will be more than a whopping 75 billion worldwide by 2025. With the projected increase in connected devices, how do you think this will change the way we interact with technology?
I think with more people using technology, I think more people is always better. Everyone gets their voice heard. Everyone can, education goes up and advance their minds almost.
That reminds me of the times in, COVID, when we had to do online schools, and then that branched out to actually normalizing online teaching, online working, and whatnot. And to think about that number, 75 billion, I mean, that's more than 9 times the world's population, which is crazy to me.
Something to think about as well is all those devices. I mean, there's a whole lot of complications with that as well. I mean, internet and bandwidth and environmental stuff. And
Wally?
what'd you say?
Wally?
Wally, what's that?
Environmental. You haven't seen Wally the movie?
Oh, Wally, the Disney movie. Yes.
I was about to say.
I thought it was like an acronym for something. No, yeah, Wally. I mean, perfect example of that. With so many people getting 75 billion devices. Billion. I mean, it's hard to even fathom what a 1 billion is, but 75 of those, it's insane. And with the increase and connected devices, there might come a point where we have to start limiting, like per person, how many devices we have. Unless we just start exponentially growing, like cell towers and internet usage and power usage and all that.
To take another step with that topic is, as the number of IoT devices increase, what do you envision as the biggest challenges that individuals or society might face? And we had a few examples earlier. Are there any that you would want to top it off with?
Yeah, one more that I actually thought about was like cybersecurity.
Oh,
With more connected devices and how like they all mesh together.
uh-huh,
I mean, just looking at it from like a hacker standpoint, that's just more entry points.
uh-huh.
And to like whether it's surveillance or trying to steal something or whatever they're trying to do. Uh, it's just that's not good. And another point was like data overload and just the sheer amount of data that would be coursing through the veins of the internet from all these like smart watches, smart like home pods and Amazon Echoes and blah 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 blah. All these things get like they take up maybe minimal, but added up, they take up a lot.
You know, now that you mention that, with 75 billion devices and having users for each and every one of those, the
Hmm.
leaked credentials websites, would they even be able to handle that amount of information? It's
I don't think
crazy.
so.
That would be
Yeah,
crazy.
it's insane. Yeah.
But you must be a sidekick because we're knocking out these questions literally two birds, three birds with one stone. The ricochet
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
immaculate. Now, you kind of already answered my next question, and that is, what are your thoughts on the privacy? Actually, you nailed it. What are your thoughts on the privacy and security risks associated with IoT devices? And you mentioned to me that you are very concerned about the personal data that comes with all that and the cybersecurity. So honestly, I'm okay with going forward if you are, unless you would
Yeah.
like to add anything on
The
top of that.
one more thing I wanted to say on that was how you know how you get a new product, right? Say from Apple, you get an iPhone from Apple,
Right.
and you see that user and terms agreement.
Uh-huh.
No one reads that. Not a
Not
single
even me.
person. Not a single person reads that. And there's a reason, because it's long and we don't have
Uh-huh.
time. No one has time for
Uh-huh.
that.
Uh-huh.
But my point is, many people don't really fully understand how their data is used,
Right.
and the lack of like security measures increases that like threshold of
Uh-huh.
vulnerability by a lot. And the amount of people who, willingly, because they're putting like that check mark and they agree to it, they're pressing those buttons, they willingly do it, uh, but not to their knowledge, are just at an increased rate of vulnerability to breach.
Now, with that, do you feel that that's ethical, or maybe, that's done on purpose by these companies? And should they be more transparent about how they use our data, or if they
Yeah,
even
yeah,
should to begin with?
yeah. I really believe that companies should be transparent about how they use their users' data, and users have a right to understand and control how their info data is collected and shared. And without that
100%.
transparency, there's like a risk of exploitation, manipulation, and a distrust or loss in that company or the technology itself.
It's almost like they're hiring some really good lawyers for their paperwork.
Yep, I'm sure they are.
Now, how do you believe the rise of IoT devices is influencing consumer purchasing decisions? And what are the specific trends that you've noticed? You brought up iPhone,
Yeah,
but you
yeah.
tell me what's on your mind.
Another thing I thought of was like how there's quote unquote smart watches,
Yes.
And like the kind of rise in quote unquote smart technology, like
Mm-hmm.
like thermostats,
That's a good one.
or like refrigerators with the like camera inside them, like
Mm-hmm.
so you can like go through your internet and see what's in your fridge when you're at the grocery store, so you can buy more stuff if you need it. I mean, sure, it's helpful, um, you know, but there's also like a shift for strong privacy features, and that shift is more, you know, I really think that showing a shift towards more security conscious buying behavior is probably essential for people. You know, if people aren't aware of what they're purchasing and the trends of society, then they might, you know, you're going to be kind of oblivious, and that's never good.
Right. Actually, and if I'm adding anything on top of that, I have two things. Just real quick. I feel like for iPhones, when it comes to consumer purchasing decisions, it's always the advertising where, some people believe that they're getting a rather great deal, a rather big upgrade, and some people are on the fence about it. They're kind of curious. But for the most part, both sides always go and buy the phone because, it's the new big thing. And
Mm,
to touch on what you were saying about the smartwatches, the smart refrigerators and whatnot,
mhm.
I feel as though if it makes life a little bit more convenient for the user, then it's going to be easier to sell to those users because I'm one of those people. I like to have things automated. And when I go for gifts, I'm not going to lie to you. When I'm buying something for somebody, I'm like, what would make their life easier?
Yeah,
And I'm
for
often
sure.
in Best Buy.
Spending more
um,
money than you should.
yeah, should just be on Temu or something. But
Yeah.
speaking of chapter three, using a private cloud. Now, many organizations, this is what I took from the book. Many organizations are understandably nervous about giving up control of their data and some of their applications by using cloud computing. But they also see the value in reducing the need for installing software and adding disk storage to local computers. Now, the reason why I wanted to attach this to my question prior is when it comes to purchasing decisions, there's a lot of companies that require lots and lots of digital store, or not just digital storage, but storage in general. Nobody wants to be
Mhm.
pushing papers in a firm anymore. Everybody wants
Yeah.
to digitalize their documents. Now, there's
Yes.
only so much space you can have. And how you brought up cybersecurity earlier, if you're working at a law firm and your client files get breached, that is very detrimental.
Yep.
Now, these cloud computing companies offer, private cloud storage, and I use Apple. I'm not gonna lie to you. I use Apple storage because there's so much stuff that I have on my phone. I don't want to get rid of it.
Yep.
And I think it is, it's like it's a, what are those light poles out near the ocean?
Lighthouses?
It's like a lighthouse to all of these lost companies looking for alternatives for storage when
Mhm.
it comes to either paper or digitalizing all of their files and documents or whatnot. It was just something I had wanted to add in there.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of companies are looking for ways to digitalize things and make it more efficient and, you know, so they can understandably make things run better. I mean, everyone wants to have their life be have a little more time at home, you know? everyone
Right,
wants to
right.
everyone wants to be home.
But yeah, last question for the day.
Alrighty.
What cultural changes do you think might arise as IoT devices become more integrated into daily life?
So, yeah, as like these devices become more like embedded in our daily life, so I think some cultures may shift towards valuing like convenience over automation, or convenience and automation over manual things, manual effort, manual, uh, like you said, filing papers instead of PDFs. It's
Uh,
a lot easier to do PDFs.
uh,
Um, and I think there also might be a change in how we define privacy and independence, with the constant connectivity becoming normal or the norm. Uh, it gets like ethically and culturally and societally more blurred, and digital literacy is becoming like really crucial now. Like if you're not literate in computers in this day and age, you're behind. You really are, and you got to catch up because it's only the train's moving forward. You can't just tell it to stop.
that's the future for you, man. I keep seeing the future is like one of those dark, rainy nights in Cyberpunk, man. Like,
Oh yeah, yep.
I keep thinking everybody's gonna be a hacker, somebody's gonna be half, what is it, cyborg or whatnot, and
Hmm.
it's I don't know. It just makes me think. But anyways, before I go ahead and catch another squirrel out there, I want to say thank you for your time, Mr. Daniel. This has
Yeah,
been a
thank you.
great conversation.
I like this podcast.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, anyways, that's gonna wrap up this podcast today. Is there anything else that you would like to add on top before we close out this session, sir?
No, I think I am all good.
Perfecto. Well, anyways, thank you all for tuning in, and you all have a great night.